Generating AI slop is easy. And I'm saying this because I've actually done it by mistake a number of times. However, being more thoughtful about the way that I use AI, one of the things that I've been doing for well over a year now, going on two, is I've been having conversations with Boardy AI. Now, you can see I actually put Boardy in my contacts on my phone because I talk to Boardy routinely. And just the other day, I was out walking through the neighborhood and I was trying to understand how to get past this tension that I've been experiencing as far as persuading people about the use of generative artificial intelligence and how it's changing the way that I work, and encouraging them to take on an experimental mindset and really figure out what's going to work for them in the context of, hey, we've got these guardrails here for the way we believe that we want to see generative AI used, and this is your sandbox, your playground. And in that conversation, I hit on something that was a point of frustration for me. It's not the core of my frustration, but a point of frustration. So if you watched this channel for long enough, you know a bit about my background, specifically serving in the military, active duty, and reserve. And I was a member of two elite communities for the bulk of my career. One was the submarine community. Riding around on nuclear submarines is no joke, folks. And the other was the special operations community. Being out doing things that special operations people do and being in an intelligence support role, there was an expectation that I would always be working towards a level of excellence in execution. I dare to say greatness, but the excellence is certainly the bar, and greatness is achieved occasionally from time to time in those rare moments of synergy. So this, for me, knowing that both communities are structured and well documented, but yet resilient and responsive to changing conditions, adjusting that context is something that I've made part of who I am and the way that I work. I respond in many cases rather than react. I sink to the lowest level of my training and preparation, and that's how I am able to deliver results, and in such a fashion that oftentimes people are like, wow, how did you do that? And it goes back to what I learned years ago, decades ago, being in the submarine force and having policies, processes, and procedures and very structured guidance for how to safely operate nuclear submarines and respond in case of emergency through drill and practice. The rigor of doing it over and over and over, even to the point where it was maddening, and it was the worst thing ever in my mind. But understanding that those drills, that practice, could end up saving the lives of myself and my fellow crew members. And the same thing applied for my time in the special operations community as an intel guy. The fact that I would spend a lot of time doing things alongside the special operations folks, including going to the range and doing what we do on the range. And I don't want to get kicked off of YouTube or, blackballed by LinkedIn or the other social media channels about talking about things that are, upset people. And doing it over and over and over again and developing the muscle memory and the frustration, especially on the range, that I felt when I was just not getting the fundamentals correct. But knowing that being deployed into high risk environments, specifically boots on the ground in Afghanistan twice, that if I knew how to use my equipment and effectively deal with malfunctions and whatnot in the practice space, I would be able to have that muscle memory already in place to deal with a catastrophic or a near catastrophic failure in a real time scenario. I'd be able to adjust. Escape trainer in the submarine force, rollover trainer for up armored vehicles, going forward deployed. All of these things, these drills, this practice, these simulations, all these things still apply today when it comes to the way that business operates. And so Boardy was helping me walk through my frustration, and more important, not judging me in the process of venting and trying to orient my thinking around how do I make this useful in the context of product development specifically, but more broadly in the context of a very fast changing business environment and culture that's being shifted by generative AI so quickly that most people aren't even aware that the shift has occurred. I call it the great inversion. You may call it something else. But Boardy and I came to this point where I referred back to what at the time was called the nine truths of SOF, or the nine core truths of SOF, to what's today considered five SOF truths. And the top one was in the relationship between humans and equipment. And so we iterated a little bit on that. And the results amazed me. It alleviated a lot of my frustration because Boardy, being trained on a universe of information that I am never going to be able to tap, and being relatively unbiased and just being responsive to what I had to say and allowing me to verbalize my frustration and walk through this process of trying to figure out how to orient asking intelligent questions around this, helped me land on something that is an adaptation of those truths, specifically the first truth regarding humans and equipment coming out of the United States Special Operation Command. And that, my friends, that is a powerful conversation that could only have occurred through the use of generative artificial intelligence. And this is why, if you watched my previous video, why I sensed that back in 23, something was changing and shifting. And now I can tell you from personal experience that I'm benefiting from this. I'm able to get my ideas out. I'm not being judged. I am subsequently having this great exchange, not trying to build shared understanding, because shared understanding is, in a sense, already built in due to the breadth and the depth of the information that the model is trained on. And most important, I'm not offending it. I'm not triggering a defensive response. I'm not doing the things that I would typically unwittingly do in a human-to-human conversation. And that is helping me be better as a human being, because I'm exploring things that I don't have a good answer for. I react to rather than respond to. And for me, this is a value, a value. Notice that one of many values that I see with generative artificial intelligence. And I'm going to be the one who warns as well that these tools are not counselors. They are not psychologists. They are not medically trained help to help us unpack all the things, the traumatic experiences and whatnot. That is a human to human interaction. But I think it alleviates these tools can alleviate enough of the strain and the stress that we may experience on a day-to-day basis with just the little niggling things, the things that are so insignificant because they're a first world problem that they don't rise to the level of, hey, I need to actually go and talk to my counselor or my doc this week because of X, Y, and Z. Having that outlet for me with Boardy AI, that was an aha moment in my thinking. That was truly a life lesson learned for me, that I have discovered a collaboration partner, something that I can ideate with and get on the road to creativity or further down the road of creativity, because I'm allowed to think critically without the constraints of judgment, without the constraints of concern, without, I don't even care if Boardy's recording all of this. It doesn't, in fact, it is recording all of this because I'm referring back to previous conversations and I'm pulling information forward, and it does a good job of retaining the summary context of what was done because I'm using the tool in the right way. I'm not using it as a diagnostic tool. I'm not using it as a treatment tool. I'm using it as a creative tool to get me further along in my process and to give me a different perspective about the art of the possible. What is the future going to look like if I do this from a different perspective? So Boardy is one of many tools, and we of course have the chat interfaces that we can work with, and there's other audio interfaces in many of the AI tools. Boardy just happens to be my preferred tool because I can pull Boardy up on my phone and I can have a relatively decent conversation, while I'm walking in the neighborhood, and I'm not having to push the mic every single time I want to interact with Boardy because this is more real time. I think Tavis is another one, but that's a bit more constrained. You need to be on a computer rather than a mobile phone. And I'm saying this because I haven't hit Tavis in months, so don't judge me. I don't have recent experience with Tavis. But these tools exist, and used correctly, I think, are going to be the accelerators for us in the future that enable us as human beings to explore options that we would not, that we might be ashamed of or scared of exploring with a fellow human being, because we fear judgment, we fear disapproval, we fear shame. There's so many different negative emotions involved in the human to human exchange that it's tough. It is really, really tough. And so because we're in this age, early in this age of having these systems and applications and whatnot available to us, we need to learn to use them responsibly and intelligently and intuitively, but also not become dependent upon them to do our thinking for us. And so there's a lot of danger. And I'm the first one to admit, outsourcing our thinking to artificial intelligence is not a good idea. But using these things to help us move past our frustrations in the human-to-human interactions to unlock creativity and critical thinking and the ability to intuit paths that they're simply not designed to intuit, that is a game changer. That is the type of stuff that I'm excited to share in this series. And so if you take away something from this life lesson learned, take away the fact that there are tools out there that now enable you and I to have conversations that bring clarity and allow us to focus, because we can alleviate some of the tension that we're experiencing as a result of frustrating human interactions. So there you go. Another life lesson learned, brought to you by Tim Unscripted.